Back to Am's Untitled podcast. I'm Am. Hi, if you've never met me before, it's really nice to meet you. Welcome to my Percy Jackson dedicated podcast. I'm recording in a bit of a new environment today. I'm in someone else's house, which is weird. And you know what? I thought, why not? This is a good place to record an episode. Like, the whole house is quiet. I'm pretty sure there's going to be no interruptions, which I'm very excited about. And obviously, this episode was supposed to go up last week, but I did a special episode, which was basically an interview with my best friend. So if you haven't seen that episode yet, I highly recommend you check it out. It's probably one of the best episodes on this channel so far. It was just me and him talking all things Percy Jackson because he's a new reader and he's loving it. And it's so nice to be able to share something that I'm so passionate about with someone I love. So it's great. And I thought we'll come back to breaking down the show together. So, in today's episode, we are going to be breaking down episode 3. If you don't know how this works, basically, I just sit here and I talk about specific scenes that have happened in the show, any sort of comments I think are relevant, any sort of Easter eggs I spot. Any references to the book, that sort of thing. And I also point out the changes that the show has made and also talk about how I feel about those changes and things like that. So I don't want to ramble too much at the beginning because I understand this is boring and I have a habit of doing it. So I'm just going to get straight into the episode. Let's do it. So episode 3 is We Board The Princess Andromeda, and obviously that title got me very excited because I've always wanted to see the Princess Andromeda set come to life. Like when it is described in the book, it is like this colossal thing, and honestly seeing it on the show, I can safely say that it is as colossal as they could possibly make it. And also, in this episode, teeny bit of a spoiler, we do see a bit of the ironclad stuff as well. Also, speaking of spoilers, I forgot to mention, if you haven't seen the show yet, um, all episodes of the show are available to stream now on Disney Plus and Hulu. So I highly recommend checking it out before listening to this because otherwise I'm going to spoil a lot of things for you and nothing beats watching it firsthand. So, spoiler disclaimer out the way, let's get started. So, the first scene in the show is Clarisse entering the attic to get the great prophecy from the Oracle. And you know what? She looks very scared. Now, I don't know why she's scared. Maybe it's because this is an experience she's never had to have before. But also, I think part of this is like she didn't want this quest. Like, I genuinely feel like that. When Tantalus chose her in episode 2 as his champion, in inverted commas, she didn't look happy. Like she didn't look ecstatic. Like it seemed like it was more of a hindrance to her than something that she wanted to do. Like yes, she wants to prove herself, but at the same time, she knows deep down that if she gets chosen for a quest, she doesn't have many friends to help her because of the way that she is. And I think that's what her biggest fear has been regarding getting a quest. And when the Oracle obviously gets up to tell Clarisse prophecy, she's so scared that she slices its head off. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, Clarisse, I love you, but that wasn't the move. That wasn't the move at all. It was funny, but it was also not funny at the same time. Um, and she turns away, obviously, to run from the attic, and the Oracle puts her head back on, which is terrifying because you can hear like the cracking of the bones and things like that. It's just weird. Yeah, so after that happens, the Oracle reappears and Clarisse sees this herself giving the prophecy. So if you don't remember from season 1, when Percy got his first prophecy for the quest, it transformed into Gabe. So there's this idea that the Oracle transforms into someone that you hate the most. And the fact that it's Clarisse, like herself, that she hates, I think says a lot about who she is as a character. Um, and you know, it shows that her own worst enemy is herself for whatever reason. It shows that there's part of herself that she's not happy with. And I am so glad that the show has given her an opportunity to hash out her character so we can learn more about her. Because I'll be honest, like I didn't really like Clarisse in the books. I couldn't understand why she was the way that she was. And obviously she was only ever nice to Selena. But I think like I'm glad the show has added more depth to her character so we understand why she is the way that she is, and she's not all bad. And like when I've been saying this to my best friend because he's just started season 2, I'm like, believe it or not, she's not that bad. I was like, she has some good parts to her as well. And he was like, yeah, I don't believe you. And I was like, well, you know, keep watching the show and I promise you you'll agree with me eventually. So I have got her prophecy. which is, "You shall sail the iron ship with warriors of bone. You shall find what you seek and make it your own. But despair for your life, entombed within stone, and fail." Wow. The fact that the Oracle has already said that she's going to fail is such a knock to the confidence. Because, yes, she's got this really cool ship and she's going to find what she needs and blah, 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 but she will be in despair and she's going to fail. And it's such an awful prophecy. And can we just talk about Dior's acting in this scene? Like, Dior owns this season. I don't care what anyone says. Like, she is the main character this season. And she did so unbelievably well in this scene, particularly. She does some amazing stuff, like, please don't get me wrong, like on the Ironclad, and she's a fantastic warrior. But her acting, particularly in this scene, stood out to me. I was just so impressed with her performance. So Dior, if you're listening to this, you are fantastic, and I honestly can't wait to see more of her in season 3. Um, and there's the last part of the scene where she's running out the attic in tears, like she's genuinely afraid of failing, and she's probably thinking about the fact that if she fails, she's going to disappoint her dad. And godly parents are not forgiven. Some of them are, and some of them aren't. And Aries is not one of those people. So she knows if she fails, like her dad will never let her in at the end of it. And I think that's what's freaking her out even more. Anyway, let's move on to the next scene. So the next scene is about Clarisse choosing her quest mates because obviously Annabeth has gone AWOL, according to them. And she has a bit of a unreadable expression on her face. She looks a little lost in her thoughts. And you can tell, like, I'm gonna keep saying this, like, she doesn't want to go on this quest. Like, I can see it in her face, she doesn't want to go on this quest. Because there's too much pressure, and I think deep down she thinks that she's unworthy and she doesn't have the ability to lead this quest to a success because she's got it in her head that the Oracle has said that she's going to fail. So automatically she feels like a failure. Um, and yeah, like I said, there's so much depth to Clarisse this season, and I hope that the show continues to hash her out a little bit because she's such a cool and interesting and complex character. It's nice to see this sort of vulnerable side of her. And eventually, Tantalus breaks her out of this daydream that she's having and gives her permission to kill Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson for trying to steal her quest. Um, which I think is a little bit of a harsh punishment, to be quite honest. But he thinks, his sort of toxic mentality, that he is um, following the will of the gods by killing their children, which makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, but okay. Tantalus also tells her that she could choose another questmate, but she kind of stays silent. And you can tell, I think part of it is because she believes that she doesn't have the right to ask anyone for help because she doesn't have any friends. Like, she doesn't have anyone who she's really close to. Like, yes, she has her cabin mates, but I don't think any of them have like a personal connection to her, you could say, which is awful. And I think that's putting a lot of pressure on this quest as well. She doesn't have anyone she can rely on. She's never led a quest before. She has no experience apart from being in camp. And I think that's why she feels like she's unworthy or that she can't do this. And there's nothing worse, I think, than having that self-doubt. And I think this self-doubt sends her into a bit of a spiral this season, but we'll talk a bit more about that later on. Okay, so the next scene is Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson boarding the Princess Andromeda. The Princess Andromeda set, again, absolutely fantastic. It is a bougie, posh, state-of-the-art cruise ship. Like, it is stunning. Like, I was watching it and I was just like, wow, this literally looks like it fell out the books. It looks exactly how Rick described this, like, majestic, colossal thing. And I think it kind of shows, like, it's a bit like a symbol of stature, and it shows that whoever is on it believes that they are better than everyone else. I don't know if that's just a thing, but that's kind of something that I think it is. It's like this symbol of power and glory, kleos in Greek. See how I remembered that? I'm very impressed with myself for remembering that. But yeah, I just thought the entire set was fantastic. I did also notice that there's a bit of a shot where they're showing the whole cruise ship and you can see like a scythe, like a very subtle scythe symbol on all the decks and the tents, which I thought was quite interesting. It's almost like a big clue to people that haven't read the books, basically. And the trio eventually find this room inside the ship and sort of settle in and decide what they need to do. Tyson mentions that Percy is already dry, so that basically they're trying to change out of their Camp Half-Blood t-shirts to become like undetectable or unnoticeable. And I'm glad that the show has added this detail in it. It's sort of like the older Percy is getting, the more time he spends in this world, he's adapting these demigod abilities that he didn't have anymore. And it's such a small detail, but as a book fan, I am so happy that they put that in there. And I can't wait for them to continue to add these little subtle things. Now, other people would have just dismissed that, but for me, it was such a big thing, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad that they pointed that out. And I love Tyson because he's such an observant character, and I think I'm quite observant as well. Maybe one of the reasons why I love Tyson so much. And then Percy obviously talks through the sort of gifts that Hermes gave, so like the multivitamins, the thermos of the winds, that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's quite a cool like a leather pouch as well with all the gifts in. And Tyson eventually leaves the room to change, and Percy turns to talk to Annabeth. Obviously, things are a little bit awkward between Percy and Annabeth at the minute. The last conversation that they had, just the two of them, was when he was begging her to tell him what's bothering her, and like their conversation got interrupted, which is so annoying. And this happens a lot in the story, which is like whenever Percy and Annabeth are having a moment, something happens to ruin that moment, and things just get left unsaid, which is why it's so hard for them. And I think which is why they're struggling to kind of see eye to eye at the minute, because they're not getting a chance to finish off what they want to say. And it happens a lot in the show as well, which is like, oh, it's just like, I just want them to talk to each other. Like, I just want them to be back on the same page. But maybe that'll happen towards the end of this episode. Who knows? Percy tells Annabeth that he's found a way to know the secret without knowing it. Oh dear. When he said that, I was just like, yeah, I feel like he's about to make this a lot more complicated than it needs to be. And, Annabeth says, like, it's already bad that you know that there's something that you can't know, basically, and that's already making things difficult. And Percy tells her, like, he doesn't want to know anymore about the secret. And honestly, at this point, I think the less that he knows, the better, because I can already see like the moment he finds out about this prophecy, like things will change. He'll start doubting himself, and I never want that. Like he's such a great character and such a human. He's got a lot of humility, which I love about him. And I just know for a fact, like, if he thinks that he's a danger to people, he will get locked in this spiral like Clarisse has, which is like, oh, I'm a danger, I shouldn't be around anyone. And all this self doubt will affect him, which is why I didn't want him to know about the prophecy. And I think Annabeth did the right thing to not tell him in this moment. But again, you could argue that he deserves to know as well. So it's a bit of a double edged sword when it comes to this sort of stuff. It's like, how much should a person know? Because like Annabeth says in the books, like knowledge isn't always wisdom. Like you can't, is that what she says? Knowledge isn't always power or something. And sometimes it's more dangerous to know things. So it's like maybe the best thing for him temporarily is for him to be in the dark, is all I'm saying. And he says this quote, um like, oh, I trust there's a good reason for people not wanting me to leave camp. Trust Chiron, but mostly I trust you. And Percy finally understands why Annabeth has been acting distant, and he does distant. That's what I Jesus. Can you tell it's been a long weekend? I'm like, I've forgotten how to speak English. And I feel like she's already pushed herself so far away from him. Like he doesn't want to push her away anymore. Like he wants to close this distance that they have between them, and it's just really cute. And we can slowly see like their friendship sort of healing, which is nice. And the eye contact is crazy, guys. Like I know Walker says that they're not trying to lean into it, but I swear to God, the way they look at each other sometimes, I'm just like, guys, how can you not see what's happening here? Like I've seen an interview where they were talking about longing stares, and they both equally do that. Like one thing I didn't talk about, I don't think I mentioned this in my review of episode 2. There's a bit where Percy is looking at Tantalus after they've defeated the Stymphalian flock, and Annabeth is just staring at him, and I'm just like, how can you not see what's happening? And I was like internally screaming because I was just like, they're so cute, and they both just deserve like all the love, and they just deserve each other. And I think like this is the hard part of the story being a slow burn. because in the books, because it's all written from Percy's point of view, and a lot of the times, like, Percy doesn't really clock on to what's happening. And we never really get to hear what Annabeth is thinking. But when you see it in live action, it is so different. Like, even the subtlest things look so impactful. And I think this was one of the scenes. I think this is a very underrated Percabeth scene. Argue with me if you must about this, but I think it's very underrated and I love it. Anyway, and you can tell that Annabeth is still a little bit unsure about doing this. And I think she knows that this is too big of a secret. And I don't think at this point she trusts her own ability to keep this from Percy. Like, what I realized from season one, particularly, is that she has a bit of a soft spot for Percy. And no matter what she says, no matter what she does, deep down, like, all she wants to do is protect him and just tell him and share this burden with him. But she knows that it's not for the best. And she's sort of torn in the first few episodes a lot about this. And you know what? I do feel sorry for her because, like, carrying a burden like that, like, A, Chiron shouldn't have put that burden on her anyway, but he had to tell her because because she wanted to take Percy on this quest. So I understand Chiron's point of view where he didn't want anyone to know, but at the same time, like, this is causing a lot of problems for Annabeth, and I do feel bad. And sometimes I feel like I hope she was a little bit more selfish and just told him, but we'll see if she does or not. Percy tells Annabeth to stop him from going in a bad direction by using a code word, Boon. Seriously, this guy is so unserious. Like, I actually can't. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, this guy is gonna lead an army in a war against the Titans. Like, he like in front of the battle, and he says stuff like this, and he's so unserious. I love it, but at the same time, I'm like, I know he like matures over the books, so maybe that's what it is. He's still quite young, like he's only supposed to be 13 in this season, so I suppose that he doesn't really know much. But I actually love him so much. Like I wouldn't. There is no part of Percy that I would ever change. And I think he's such a well written character, and kudos to Rick, honestly, for just creating such a great character. I haven't met anyone that hates Percy. Like genuinely, like I was talking to people about this, like it's like people don't like main characters, and I was just like, I feel like he's just the most likable main character. I don't think there's any way you can possibly hate him. And Tyson says that he can smell something bad. And I love a bit of subtle foreshadowing. Like I live for stuff like that. So I could already tell like there was something bad that was gonna happen on this ship. And obviously the first thing I thought of was monsters. And Annabeth tells him, we need a new code word. And like the code word's gonna be a problem because she said to Percy, like literally her words were, "You're gonna hate me." And it's just like, girl, he could never hate you. And it's like the fact that she cares so much of what he thinks of her, and she doesn't want to fall down in his eyes because I think she seeks her mother's approval, but also she seeks approval from Percy. Like, and I think that's so cute. And do you know what? This made me realize how much she actually likes him. Because, like, do you remember? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's in the Heroes of Olympus books, or maybe it's in the newer Percy Jackson books, where she talks about the fact that she's had a crush on him since they were 12. And from now, like, I can see it. Like, not so much in the first season. Like, I don't think it was as obvious in the first season. I did pick it up a few times, but I feel like this is now where feelings are starting to get involved because she realizes that this is one person she wants in her life forever. Like, there's no argument about it. Like, she just wants him in her life. And she's happy to love him from afar as well, which is so. That one sided love thing, like, I just love that so much. I feel like I've used the word love so much so far. It's just like, I like that dynamic that Rick has put in, basically. And what makes me laugh about this scene is Percy talks about like them chilling and like checking out the pool and stuff. And bless him, I know he's trying so hard to like relax her because he thinks that if he does all this fun stuff with her, maybe like she'll understand his enjoyment for human in inverted commas things. But I honestly don't think that now is the time for that. Like they've got their whole lives to do that, but right now they have a war to win, which is like it just comes down to him being like a bit unserious, which I like, but at the same time like he knows when to lock in. And then Tyson obviously storms into the room and he says there's monsters on the ship, and that's where the scene finishes. So scene number 4 flashes back to Clarisse, and it's her getting ready to leave for her quest, and she's on Half-Blood Hill with Thalia's tree, and her dad appears. Oh God! Do you know what? I knew as soon as he walked in that he was going to say something stupid because he's such a, excuse my French, an asshole in the books. Like, he's so unbelievably horrible to Clarisse, and he views his children as just warriors. He doesn't see them for who they are, which to some degree I can understand, but also I can't understand because at the end of the day, they are your children. Like, they're not just disposable, if you know what I mean. And you know what? She bows down in front of him and she refers to him as Lord Ares, which is like very interesting because I haven't seen many people interact with their parents yet. But she has this respect for him. And I don't think it's respect, I think it's more fear of him. And I feel like the line can get a bit confusing, but definitely she's terrified of him and she just wants to make him proud. Her life's goal is to seek his approval, which is wrong. It shouldn't be her life's goal, but I get where it comes from. And, he tells her that her humility is for losers. And, that's wrong. Like, I genuinely believe that. I don't believe that humbleness or anything like that is a weakness, but he makes it seem like that. And, at the end of the day, like, what these gods forget is that their children are human, well, half human. So they're gonna experience these human traits, and there's nothing that these gods can do about it. And it just made me think of how much worse of a character Ares is than I remember. Like, the way he was behaving with Percy, Annabeth, and Grover, like in the first season, like, you can understand that they're not his children. Percy challenged him to a duel, and Percy won, which is why he hates Percy. But why would you treat your own children like this? And it just comes down to the fact that they're bad parents. This is why people are so like taking Luke's side because they're just like, yeah, they're rubbish people. Like, they shouldn't be in power. They don't care about their children. They, if their children die, they just go and make more children. So it's like there's no appreciation for who their children are or anything. So in some degree, I kind of agree with Luke. I just don't agree with how he's going about it. And I'm glad that the show shows these horrible relationships between demigods and their parents so people can understand why some demigods have decided to join Luke to get rid of these people. Anyway, went on a bit of a tangent there, Jesus. He realizes that she hasn't got any questmates with her and she tells him that she didn't want any dead weight slowing her down. I honestly don't believe that to be true at all. I think she's just a little bit too proud to ask for help, or it's the other thing, which is she thinks she's going to fail, so she doesn't want anybody to see her failure, which makes sense, but also I don't believe anybody can do something like this alone. He calls her a one-woman army, and like I said, it comes back to this point of them. He doesn't see his children as anything more than objects of war. And he never views them as actual people with lives and feelings and things like that. And you could tell by what happens a little bit further on in this scene that he has no respect for his children. And it's a shame, really, because his children aren't all that bad. Like, Clarisse is not that bad. I just think that people have a misconception about her because of this tough exterior that she puts up. And he says that he can help her with the quest, and he gives her the ironclad and basically an army of soldiers that were dead that he's re well, what's the word? There's a specific word for it that I can't remember. Reanimated? Is that the word? I don't know. And they're basically people who have been defeated in war that owe a debt to Ares. So they're not there because they want to be there. They're dead just because they have to give this debt back. And he tells her that the sea twerp. Okay, there's no need for the horrible nickname. Like, I get that he doesn't like Percy, but sea twerp is a bit too far for my liking. And he says that he obviously this Percy's got a head start, and I think it shows that Ares doesn't actually care about the point of this quest, which is to save Camp. He only cares about it because it's a competition between his kid and Poseidon's kid, and he wants his kid to win, which is just ridiculous, by the way. But again, it comes back to just viewing your children as pawns. You know what I mean? Like, just pawns in this massive game, which is not what life is, but that's how he views it. But then again, he doesn't know any better because he's the god of war. So yeah, and Clarisse makes this swear, like she swears upon her honor that she won't let him down, and he tells her that there'll be consequences if she fails. yeah, again, like it comes back to the Greek gods loves being what's the word? Conditional. Like, if you look at Sally's mom, like her love for Percy is unconditional. Like it doesn't matter if he succeeds at a quest, if he fails at a quest, like she loves him no matter what. And it's this big thing that godparents only love their children if they glorify their parents or if they do something that's amazing. You know what I mean? Like even give they don't even bat an eyelid at their children if they deem them as unworthy, which is awful. And I can tell that this was no light threat. Like I honestly knew how much trouble Clarisse would be in if she fails in this quest. Ares introduces Clarisse to her new crew and says that she is woefully inexperienced in the field. And honestly, the look on Dior's face, like her face just fell. And I was just like, that is so sad because not only is she struggling with the fact that she doesn't believe in herself, but also now her dad has put this lack of belief in her as well. So in all theories, from all angles, like it always looks like everybody wants her to fail, which is so sad. And he threatens to grind the crew's bones to dust and throw them into the pit of Tartarus if Clarisse fails. Well, that's delightful, isn't it? It definitely was uncalled for, but I suppose that's the sort of threat the god of war makes. And the scene ends with Ares leaving and the crew turning to look at Clarisse. Okay, let's move on to the next scene. So we're back on the Princess Andromeda again. And Percy and Annabeth are walking around looking for monsters. Cake by the Ocean, which is a song that I haven't heard in years, is blasting from the speakers. And it's just, I swear that that song is by DNCE, isn't it? And it's at least like 10 years old, come on. And it was a bit of a blast from the past. And I just, yeah. I feel like it made me feel old, which is great. But also, it's such a good song for that moment. Annabeth spots the Laestrygonians that attacked camp. And Percy tells them that they need to get off the ship. And he sends Tyson to obviously grab their stuff from the room. We get the first look at Aiden, who hasn't officially been introduced yet. Um, he gets introduced in episode 7, I think, but I just thought I'd point your guys' attention out to him because he is a son of Aphrodite, but we'll talk more about him when we get there. And they see the Lestrygonians using a gold key card and getting inside an elevator. So again, gold key card, very symbolic. We'll come back to that. Percy and Annabeth are trying to figure out why Hermes sent them there. Like, why would Hermes send them to a ship full of monsters? I don't know how either of them like haven't figured it out yet. Like, particularly Annabeth, I'm like, why don't you understand why Hermes has sent you here? And a girl spots them and is listening into their conversation. And Alison shouts Annabeth's name, and it is revealed that she is a daughter of Apollo. Alison, if you didn't know, we met her in the first episode. She is part of Luke's army, but obviously Percy and Annabeth don't know her yet. And she basically is looking for the Golden Fleece as well. Annabeth introduces Percy to Alison, but she says she's already heard all about him. This is when you could tell that there's something definitely a little bit off about her. It's the way she says it, you know that she's got an ill intention there. Annabeth tells Alison to come off the ship with them. Yeah, I don't know why Annabeth's like stranger danger signal wasn't kicking off here because Alison makes it quite obvious that she's a bit of a threat. But I don't know, maybe Annabeth has learned not to judge a book by its character since she's met Percy. Character cover is what I meant, not character. Alison mentions that she's got good friends on board and they are monster hunters. You know what? I'm pretty sure that had a double meaning to it. I don't think she was referring to monsters as in actual monsters. I think she was referring to demigods that believe that Olympus should still stand. I think that's what she meant by it. But I do like that sentence. It's very, very clever. Percy remembers seeing Alison in Grover's mind, and he knows that she's a traitor who's luring them into a trap. I'm so glad that the penny finally dropped in his brain. I was waiting for him to be like, before. It's like, you literally watched her with Grover. Like, how do you not remember that? Alison tries to kill them, and honestly, this entire action sequence was so cool. They've really, really leveled up stunts this season. You can tell that it's getting more and more complicated. And obviously, as the kids are growing up, like their skill sets are getting better as well. And Alison is a phenomenal fighter. I don't like her as a character very much, but she is a very clever warrior. And eventually Percy grabs Annabeth to save her and Alison falls overboard. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I am an awful person and I did sit there and laugh when she fell overboard. I honestly thought she was dead because I was just like, there's no way she could have survived that. But we'll see if she comes back or not. Percy and Annabeth head back to the room to find Tyson, and they find a key card in Alison's bag with a scythe on it, and it's a golden key card. I'm assuming to symbolize the golden age that they're trying to create, but we'll see. Percy can hear Kronos like talking in his mind. He can sense Kronos's presence around him, and he realizes that her word vomit that Hermes has sent them to the ship because Luke is there. And then eventually Annabeth turns on the screen in the room and it has an ad for the Princess Andromeda, and she realizes that Luke isn't just on the ship. This is his ship, basically, and that's where the scene cuts off. So the next scene is back on the Ironclad, and Clarisse is having a really rough time. Like the crew is mocking her because obviously um, Ares has told them that she's inexperienced, so they are not willing to listen to her. And I noticed, like, as she's walking, like, she keeps saying the prophecy to herself out loud, and it's showing how far, like, the oracle has got into her head. Like, it's actually messing with her to the point where she can't function properly. And, Clarisse tries to talk to this crew, but they're all just ignoring her. She tries to scream at them like her dad would, and, you know, um, behaving like the god of war by calling them like maggots and stuff like that. But it doesn't work. She doesn't have the same sort of impact. Now, I don't know if that's because she's a woman. I don't know if it's a sexist thing or if it's because they just won't take her seriously because she's never really accomplished anything. I don't know. And, you can tell like they don't want to get along with her because of the way Ares has degraded her. And you do feel bad for Clarisse. Like a lot of this season is feeling bad for her. Like she does make some silly decisions, but I never believe that she's had any bad intentions ever. As much as she tries to like prove herself to be like this bully and like this tough person, like I don't think that's who she is at all. Um, okay, let's move on to the next scene. So we are back on the Princess Andromeda again, and Percy and Tyson are talking about the Titans. And Percy is looking for something in the drawers, so he's kind of like fidgeting around in the drawers. But honestly, the way he tells this story in such a comical way is probably one of my favorite parts of the episodes. Like the way he just describes the whole story. Like he makes it seem like it wasn't such a I wouldn't say he downplays it, but the way he describes it is just hilarious. And Percy asks Annabeth where he's gonna find Luke, so he basically pulls up a map of the ship so that they can take him down. And Annabeth is sitting there like, take him down? Like, why would we want to do that? And she uses the code word to try and stop Percy. And then Percy eventually accuses her of, misusing their code word, and that she's wrong, basically, and she's just saying it to win this argument so they don't like make this move on Luke. And I think it was part of it, but it was a teeny bit of jealousy as well, which is like, ooh, I don't like the fact that you're defending him, blah blah blah, sort of thing. And she tells Percy, that no one's angrier than her at Luke for poisoning Thalia's tree. He's betrayed her, but she doesn't want him to die. And that's because she still loves him. Like, as much as she won't admit it, she does love him and she doesn't want to see him get hurt. And, I think that this is something like this love that she has for Luke causes a lot of problems, not just in the show, but in the book as well. And, it's something that Percy and her are constantly clashing heads at. Like, Percy just can't understand that even after everything Luke has done, that she still loves him. Like, he just doesn't get it. And she looks so hurt in the scene. Leah's acting in this scene was just brilliant. And, she wants to save Luke. Like, she has this in her head that she's gonna save him. And I think I talked about this maybe when we were reading the books. I remember saying something similar to this, which is like when you love someone, it is so easy to overlook their flaws and you still believe that they can be like saved even though sometimes they can't. And Percy literally tells her this. She's like, I don't think Luke can be saved. Like I don't think he wants to be saved. But Annabeth disagrees. She knows that he's been manipulated by Kronos, so she wants to get him off this ship. She thinks that by pulling him away from Kronos, he'll be back to the Luke that she knows. I don't think that that's true, but she's holding on to this hope, and I think that hope is such a big thing, especially in a time like this. So I can't say I'm necessarily mad at her for hoping that he changes. Percy agrees to capture Luke instead of killing him. I think I know he'd prefer to kill him, but whatever. And Annabeth says that they need a new code word, but Tyson disagrees. Annabeth tells Percy that Luke is in the Admiralty suite because he's always been about glory, so he would have taken the biggest room for himself. Which sounds very Luke to me. And finally, in the scene, Tyson asks how they are planning to get Luke off the ship without being spotted by all the monsters. And Percy says he's got an idea. Right, I was very worried when he said this because I love Percy, but a lot of his plans are not very well thought out. And I know that most of the time they don't end very well. So I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if this is such a good idea. But we'll see. We'll see. So let's move on to the next scene, which is outside the Admiralty Suite, and they've got one of those carts. I don't know if you guys have seen it. A lot of the housekeepers in hotels use them, where they put dirty laundry from hotel rooms in there. And Tyson says that he can smell something worse than monsters. And I'm assuming that he can smell the sarcophagus, which is a bit of a book reference, so I don't know if you can it's something that happened in the book, so I don't know if that's like a thing or not. But yeah, I'm pretty sure like it's the smell of the sarcophagus and Kronos that he can smell, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And Percy hears Kronos again, and Kronos says that he's waiting. Oh, the voice is so eerie. Like I don't like it. Like it actually makes me feel a bit strange when I hear Kronos' voice, but I suppose that shows that they've picked the right person to play Kronos' character. Annabeth asks what the plan is, and he says he's going to kick down the door and say, "Hi, Luke." Jesus Christ. Do you know when he said that? And he's like, "Oh, or I could say, bye, Luke." And it's like, no, that's not a plan. That's a hope that you could take him down without anyone noticing, get him in the washing car, and get him off the ship. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, there is no way a plan like that is going to work. And you can tell, like, Annabeth is just looking at him like, what the hell? And Annabeth tells him straight up, like you can't take Luke in a fight. The way she said it, I don't think she meant it to be as hurtful as it came across. And Luke is the best swordsman at camp. Like, well, he used to be the best swordsman at camp. And Percy is a teeny bit out of practice because obviously he spent like a year away from this world. So I kind of see Annabeth's point, but she shouldn't have said it the way that she said it. And you can tell like how much it hurts Percy when she doubts him. And he even says, thanks for the vote of confidence. You know what I mean? Of all people, like he wants her to believe in him. And when she doesn't, it really impacts him and it affects the way he behaves, which you'll see in the next episode. Um, they hear the elevator ding, and out comes Alison with the lace dragonians. To be honest, I was a little bit annoyed that she survived that. I was like, how is that even possible that you fell overboard into the sea and you still survived? She does not look happy though. It was so funny. Like she does this little like hissy fit walk, which made me laugh. And she goes inside the Admiralty suite, and Percy tells Tyson to listen into their conversation. And obviously Tyson is a Cyclops, so he can mimic the voices, which is a bit creepy, but also so cool at the same time. And Percy finds out that Luke knows that Tyson is his brother because there's a group of spies at camp, which is interesting. Because I'm glad they've talked about this now because it became like a book 4 thing when they were talking about spies at camp. But I'm glad that they've introduced it a little bit earlier in the show. Alison tells Luke that obviously Percy and them are all outside the door and they get surrounded by demigods and monsters. And Luke appears. He's got aura this season, guys. Like, we're going to talk about that. And Annabeth's guard goes down. Like, you can tell, like, when he walks up to them, like, she just says Luke and, like, she slowly puts her dagger down. And, this hesitant, is it hesitance? You could say that she has because she hasn't accepted his betrayal and she still loves him is going to cause her a lot of problems in the next season. But we'll come to that the time. I don't want to spoil anything if anyone hasn't read the book. Right. The next scene takes place inside the Admiralty suite, and Luke is showing off his suite, basically. And poor Tyson got taken away by the Lace Dragonians. I knew that Luke had some sort of agenda by doing that, and that agenda gets revealed in the next scene. So we'll talk more about that when we get there. Percy assures Tyson that they won't hurt him. Do you know what? I don't think he actually believes that, but he's trying to reassure himself. And this is because he feels this sense of responsibility to look after Tyson, because obviously he made a vow to his mom that he would take care of him. And now that he's Tyson is also a son of Poseidon. Like, he feels like he owes it to both his parents to protect him, and right now he feels like he can't do that, which is really sad. Luke looks at Annabeth, but she sort of like looks away and looks down. You can tell that he has fallen down in her eyes by doing what he's done. Like, he's hurt her so badly, like she can't even look him in the eyes. And I don't think that there's anything worse than that, than someone who loved you and respected you. All of a sudden, they've got none of those things for you anymore because of what your actions and what you've done. And obviously, Percy tells him that Hermes knows that he's on his, like, Luke is on this ship basically, and Percy tells him, like, Hermes is still hopeful for you, but he disagrees. Okay, just talk about this Percy being a Luke hater at the minute. He truly believes that Luke is beyond redemption. And he is so sassy, and he knows when to, like, say things to really get in people's head. Like, he knows by saying this that he's going to annoy Luke. He's already brought up the fact that Hermes knows where he is. That's already going to piss Luke off. Then he's saying that his dad still has hope for him, but Percy completely disagrees. So Percy is looking past this hopeful side of things, and he's just like, no, he needs to go because he's doing the wrong thing. And I think this is a kind of ability that only Percy has, which is he can say things to get in people's heads and make them doubt themselves. And I think this is what's happened with Luke. Luke tells him that it's good that Hermes loses hope because his time is over. Okay, I know the gods are not perfect parents. And I know that Luke hates Hermes, but Hermes isn't the worst Olympian parent. And I know it talks more about that in the books later on, but I'm hoping that the show shows us more of these flashbacks when Luke was small and Hermes did used to come around, because Hermes is not all bad. And, in episode 2, all he kept saying to Percy was like, he's my son. Like, nothing is ever going to change the fact that he's my son. So he'll never stop believing in him, never stop hoping that he will change, basically. And it's heartbreaking for any parent when your child hates you so much and they're on this path that's going to lead them into destruction, basically. And, I think Luke wants his dad to feel like shit, basically, which is not necessarily a good thing, but yeah. Percy tells Luke to surrender and maybe Zeus will spare his life. Yeah, I honestly don't think that that's true. And I think deep down Percy knows that as well, but he's just trying to give Luke an option to surrender. And it's basically his way of saying to Annabeth, look, I gave him a chance and he's not taking it, sort of thing. Luke tells Percy that Poseidon is fighting in a war, which is why Luke isn't so worried about him because Poseidon is too busy fighting Titans to cause him any problems in the sea. And Luke also brings up, sorry, before this, he brings up the fact that look at how Zeus spared Thalia's life, by turning her into a tree, and that hurts. Like, honestly, like, you can tell like he'll never forgive the gods for what they did to Thalia, and obviously Annabeth could never forgive them as well, but she at least believes in a better world, um, and with the gods being different and better than they are. But I think Luke has sort of lost all hope. Luke walks towards the sarcophagus, and Percy can hear Kronos talking to him. And the sarcophagus, which is something that I noticed, is gold and black, which represents obviously the darkness that will come with the age of Kronos, and the gold to symbolize this new golden age that they're creating. And honestly, like, the power of that sarcophagus, like, you can feel it when you're watching it. It's like, yeah, like, this is the real deal. Like, things are getting serious now. And Luke says that the Great Awakening has already begun, which I can believe because he mentions that Cronus's essence is already trying to rise from Tartarus to gather here on the ship where they want to forge a new body for him. And Annabeth realizes that the Golden Fleece is the thing that's going to be used to speed up Kronos' healing. And she basically just goes off on Luke about the fact that he destroyed Thalia to save Kronos. I mean, she's right. Like, he betrayed someone that he loved to bring a Titan back. It's like, what kind of loyalty is that? Trading someone who is your family, someone who you claim to love more than anything, to bring back a great evil into the world. And, Luke really looked intimidated at this point. And I'm glad Annabeth said what she did. I was proud of her for standing her ground because I feel like she'd been too quiet up until now, and I didn't like that. And she was patronizing him. She was making him feel like rubbish, and she raised a valid point. Like, how dare you? Like, complain about what happened to Thalia and what the gods have done to her when you are bringing back the one thing that's going to destroy absolutely everyone, you know? And I was honestly, that scene is probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole episode, because it's just like, I'm glad she wasn't afraid to stand her ground. And Luke obviously feels very intimidated by this, and he says the one thing that most people, well, most older people tend to say, which is like, you don't know her well enough. And he accuses her of just being a kid and not understanding what was really happening at that time. Annabeth is wise beyond her years. I'm sure even at 8 years old she could understand what was happening. And this part really irritated me, because it was like, it's just this thing about wanting to win the argument. It's not that he's like raised a valid point. He's just trying to win this argument and manipulate Annabeth into thinking that she didn't know Thalia at all. He knows that if he plants that seed of doubt in Annabeth's mind, she will start feeling like, okay, maybe she didn't know Thalia, maybe this is what Thalia would have wanted, that Thalia wanted to take down Olympus as well, which is not true. And we learn that more as this season goes on. But it's just the power of doubt and planting that seed in people's mind is so important in these books, and I'm glad that the show has implemented that as well. Luke tells Annabeth that if Thalia knew about the great prophecy and that she had a chance to take down Olympus, she never would have given up her life. That's not true. I am going to stand with Annabeth on this. That is not true. Thalia was fiercely loyal. She protected her own. She protected the people she loved. She would never do such a thing. And I just think this is, again, Luke's way of trying to manipulate Annabeth into thinking that she's wrong about everything. And you know what? Annabeth looks so sad in this scene. She looks like she's about to cry, and Luke looks away because he knows that he's still got a soft spot for her as well. If she cries, he will break, and he can't afford to do that, especially when there's people watching. Um, and this scene really did break my heart, and it made me quite emotional, and I did tear up, because I was just like, one thing has come, like, destroyed a sibling relationship. Like, two people who loved each other unconditionally now have this massive strain and tear in their relationship because he's made a wrong choice, basically. And Luke also tells Annabeth that the tree is Thalia's curse and she'd be glad to see it fall. Um, you can really see in this scene how much Kronos has messed with Luke's head. Like, he's part of me believes that these aren't Luke's words. This is just the stuff that Kronos has planted in Luke's head. And it's the power of words is so strong. And that's why the words of the prophecy are so heavy to people, because it's like the way words are used to manipulate people is honestly crazy. And you can see how much these words have changed Luke. Percy realizes that Luke mentions the great prophecy, and Annabeth's face just falls. She's like, damn it, like he's gonna want to know now. And then Luke says that, oh, Percy actually didn't have any idea about the prophecy, and he says it to this group of demigods that are with him, that are part of his team. Is like, this is how the gods divide people, by not sharing information or hiding the truth. And Percy says, actually, I don't want to know. And Percy is very honest about things, which is like, I like it, which I like. And he says that, I don't want to know about this prophecy, not just because I'm smart, but because I'm scared. Like, he admits that. And I think it's so inspiring to young people that it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to admit things and not want to know things. And you know what? It was such a powerful moment. Like, we talk about Percy being an unserious character, but he is so wise as well. Like, I'm glad they've put that in the show. They're raising awareness. Like, it's okay to be scared, and there's nothing wrong in asking for help. And it's one of the reasons why I love him so much. And then, Luke says that he's always liked Percy, which is true. They had a bit of a big brother, little brother relationship. And, he says that you deserve to know the truth, which I don't know if Luke wants to tell him out of respect that he had for Percy at one point, or if he just wants to tell him to get him in his, like, to get in his head. I don't know, but we'll see what happens in the next few scenes. Okay, so the next scene is kind of based in the lower deck of the Princess Andromeda, I'm assuming. And Percy and Annabeth are basically getting a tour from Luke, and they're seeing that these demigods who have joined Luke's side and monsters are coming together, and training for battle, basically. Percy sees Tyson, and he immediately asks him, if he's okay. Tyson is fine, thank God. And he really does care about Tyson. Like, I truly believe that. Like, he does love him, despite how angry he is with his dad and how embarrassed he felt initially to be associated with Tyson. Like, I feel like that's kind of all melted away now, because he remembered that actually he has a duty to look after him, which is more important than anything else. And they see Tyson showing off his craftsman skills and building something, and he asks for a fireball from one of the Laestrygonians, which is quite an important thing. So do remember that detail. I like subtle foreshadowing in the show, and I liked the subtle foreshadowing of what was happening in this scene. Luke says that his army will offer Tyson the acceptance that he's always wanted, and Percy realizes that he's made a huge mistake by trying to push Tyson away. He's basically given Tyson an opportunity to join Luke because he didn't treat him well. He now thinks that he's regretting it because he's like, oh God, like Tyson has found a community that's going to accept him for who he is and not treat him like a problem or try to fix him and things like that. So now he's realized that he's given Tyson an opportunity to join Luke. Obviously, we know that Tyson would never do such a thing because he's so loyal to Percy and he loves Percy and Sally, and he would never make a mistake like that. It's just the fact that Percy's clocked on now that he's made a huge mistake. And I like that it's not explicitly stated in the show, but the more you think about it, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Um, Luke tells them that he's fighting to create a golden age where everyone is free. Um, I I get it. He's trying to overthrow the gods so that demigods can be free to do whatever they please, which sounds honorable but also not honorable. But humans don't fit into this world, which is not allowed, obviously. And I get Luke. He is someone who is trying to do a heroic thing, but in a villainous way. I think that's the best way to describe it. Um, and I think this is like Percy and Luke have never outwardly disagreed about the gods being bad parents. Like they've never disagreed. But Percy's saying like the gods are trying their best. And, like he says it in the season 1 confrontation as well, our parents aren't perfect, but they're trying their best. And it's not that it's really hard with Luke, and I get why there's a lot of Luke supporters because he's he's trying to do the right thing, but I think the way he's gone about it is wrong, which is why people don't necessarily want to join his side, if you know what I mean. Um, Percy asks what will happen to the campers if they don't bow down to Luke, and Luke says he's planning a siege on the camp as soon as the barrier falls. Okay, he's officially lost his mind, guys. Can we just say that Luke is gone? Because this is not him. Like, he wants to kill his own friends. Like, I'm sorry, I could not take Luke's side on this. He's not wrong about everything, but he is doing the wrong thing. And the fact that he is willing to kill people who he grew up with just to prove a point is crazy. He said if the campers joined him, they'll be spared. I don't know. I feel like there's doubts about that as well, but whatever. And Luke tells Percy that he can end the war tonight by joining Kronos. Bro, Percy is a hater. He'll never ever join Luke. Like he might not like the gods, but he knows right from wrong. His mum has instilled him, like she has taught him what's right and wrong. And he's half Sally, so I know he will always do the right thing and he will never make a wrong choice. No matter how tempting Luke makes it, Percy's got his head screwed on. He knows for a fact he would never do something stupid. So that's where that scene ends. Right, last few scenes we're going to talk about. I feel like I've been talking for a long time. Let's do it. So Annabeth asks if Kronos is the one who told Luke about the great prophecy, and he admits that Kronos speaks directly to him now. Jesus, he's so badly manipulated that Kronos is actually in his head, which is crazy. I feel bad for him, but also at the same time, I'm like, mate, you've kind of bought this on yourself. And she asks him if Luke trusts Kronos not to twist the words of a prophecy in Kronos' favor. You can see what she's doing. I get it. She's trying to get in his head and make him doubt Kronos. I don't think it's going to work because of how far Luke has gone, but I can see and I can applaud the effort, basically. And Luke thinks that the prophecy words are clear, but Annabeth disagrees with him. Mate, since when has the prophecy words been clear? Like the great prophecy itself, like I know it because I've read the books, but that thing is confusing as hell. Like no prophecy is simple, which is what Annabeth is trying to say. And you could tell, like, there's a little bit, like, a hint of it where Luke is sort of doubting himself, but he's trying to hide it because obviously his crew are all around him. And you can tell it's working a little bit until Alison accuses Annabeth of trying to trick Luke. Girl, you're not even part of this conversation. Like, you are irrelevant. Like, in the nicest way possible. Like, this is between Luke and Annabeth. Like, this is their family matter. Even Percy is not commenting because he knows this is between a brother and a sister. And I really don't like Alison, guys. Like, she really gets on my nerves this whole season. Like, I'm sure Beatrice is lovely. Please don't get me wrong. She's a fantastic actress. But I hate Alison as a character, which I think the show has done a good job of creating a character that everyone hates. um, Alison like sort of walks towards Annabeth, and Percy puts himself between her and Annabeth, which I think is so cute. Like, I'm glad that he comes to protect her. You know what it is? It's small gestures like this that are so powerful, and I love that the script has slowly incorporated. Maybe Walker didn't even realize like what he was doing, but I saw it and I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Luke tells Alison to stand down. Yeah, I don't think she cares, mate. Like, I'm not joking. Like, I don't think she'll listen to Luke ever. And you could tell like part of it is Luke still trying to protect Annabeth, because I think he's got it in his head that he can persuade her to join him, even though we all know that that's not true. But at the end of the day, she is still his sister, so regardless of their difference in opinion, like, he still loves her and he'll always try to protect her. He still cares about her in his own weird, like, twisted up way. He does care about her. Tyson says all done, and Percy looks like genuinely concerned. Even I was a bit like, what is he doing? And Tyson has created a bomb and it explodes. He's such a clever guy. Like, I genuinely don't think that he gets enough credit for him. Like, he knew there was only one way to get Percy and Annabeth out of this, so he created this bomb to try and save them, which is quite cool. Also, can we talk about, since we're talking about aura, like we've talked about Luke's aura, but Tyson aura is something that needs to be studied. You know the shot where his coat is on fire, which was amazing. Please don't get me wrong, he was actually on fire. Daniel admitted that he was actually on fire for the scene. And he comes into the frame and Percy and Annabeth are just staring at him in shock. Like, honestly, I think my jaw was on the floor at one point as well. Like, I did not expect that at all, which is super cool. The trio sort of makes a run for it, and Alison tells her crew to cut them down. Wow, she's really angry. Like, I don't get what her problem is against Percy and Annabeth. Maybe she doesn't have as much of a hate towards Percy. I think it's more directed at Annabeth because Luke cares about Annabeth, and maybe she's looking for that affection in Luke, and obviously it's not happening because he has a love for Annabeth, which is maybe why she doesn't like her. I don't know. And Luke says no, but literally no one listens, which is crazy. They find the lifeboat and get off the ship, and Percy uses the thermos of the winds to take them far away. Also, the look exchange between Percy and Luke before they sail away, you can tell like they've got some unfinished business between the two of them, and that's where the scene ends. Okay, so second to last scene we're going to be talking about is on the Ironclad. So Clarisse is basically asking her crew whether they are tired of losing, which is a question because obviously everybody that is on this ship that is part of Clarisse's crew is a loser of war basically. So that's why they owe a debt of war to Ares. And she gives this amazing speech about this being their second chance to change their fate. And you know what? I think there was a moment of self realization here as well. Like, Clarisse finally realizes that this is an opportunity to prove herself to everyone. All those people that have doubted her. Like, she wants to complete this quest to shove it down their throats, basically. And I think she's referring to her dad mostly. She is a highly intelligent character, she's a complex character. And I'm glad that the show has given her an opportunity to show that she is more than just a bully, and like she actually does have hopes for herself and she has this belief in herself, like even though she had it in her head to begin with that she was inexperienced or that she was a failure or that she had no friends to do this, like she's found a way. She can make friends with this crew, like they can all be on the same page and she can complete this quest. She'll have people to help her, and I think this is the moment where she's like, yeah, I can do this sort of thing. And there was something that stood out to me when she was talking to the crew. She promises Elysium. Now, if you don't know what Elysium is, it's basically Greek heaven, and the noblest of warriors and heroes go there. Now, I don't think this is something she's allowed to offer. From what I know, from my knowledge, is that this can only be promised to someone by the gods. Um, I don't think she's allowed to offer that, but that is an important detail. Remember that. We'll come back to that in the next episode. She finally earns the crew's respect as a captain, and they all says that they're willing to work to help her. This is a really big moment for Clarisse. She's finally being respected, not just because people are afraid of her, but because they believe in her, which is nice. And, one of her captains says to her, like, Clarisse, like, these coordinates are not right. And she's been given the wrong one. As you know, Tantalus obviously gave the wrong coordinates because he's an idiot and he wasn't listening to a word Percy was saying. And, she remembers this conversation about Percy standing up and being like, oh, yeah, no, the dream came to me, not Tantalus, blah, 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 from episode 2. And she knows that she has to find Percy to get the right coordinates. And there's this look of determination on her face. And, like, she's all about the business now. So the last scene we're going to talk about before we wrap this episode up is the scene on the lifeboat between Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson. Obviously, Percy thanks Tyson for saving them and getting them out of a very terrible situation. And Tyson says, Luke's crew wasn't that bad, like, you know, but he made the bomb because Percy and Annabeth were in trouble and they needed to be saved. Honestly, I don't think that I could love Tyson anymore. Like, I loved him in the books, but the way Daniel plays him, he's got this beautiful innocence and humility to this character that I've never seen before. And it's just, yeah, he's so cute. He just needs a hug. That's what I keep thinking. I'm not even a hugger, but I just want to hug him all the time. It's great. And, he uses Sally's line, a real hero is someone who stands up for others. And, he chooses to live by these words because Sally has influenced him. Like, she gave him a home when he had no one. She looked after him. She mothered him. She cared for him. And you can see how much of her goodness has impacted him and influenced him over the past year. Yes, she is wise beyond her years, but she has given this world 2 sons that, even though Tyson is not biologically hers, she still mothered him and cared for him. She's given this world 2 sons that are literally the epitome of humility and strength, and she should be so proud of herself. And I'm so proud of Tyson as a character. I think he's beautifully written, and I'm glad the show has given him the justice that he deserves. um and yeah, there's a bit where obviously Percy walks up to Annabeth and she says that she thinks Luke is right and that Percy should know about the great prophecy. Now I think about it, I think Luke made a valid point. I do agree. And I do feel like Percy deserves to know the truth about his own fate. Because if he doesn't know, then that's unfair that everybody else knows. So, yeah, you can see how much Luke has really gotten into Annabeth's head. She's already doubting herself if she really knew Thalia at all. And this is what he wanted all along. And I don't know if this is what Luke wanted or if this is what Kronos wanted. I can not tell. But you can tell she's doubting herself now, which is not good. Um, she now thinks that she's wrong about everything. And, even though Percy reassures her that she isn't, honestly, he's so perfect for his insane. Sorry, I got distracted by Percabeth moment there. It's just like, he always builds her up. He never wants to drag her down. And he wants her to believe in herself as much as he believes in her, which is great. Which is why I love him. He's great. And Annabeth tells Percy that she doesn't know the full prophecy, and Chiron only really gave her the gist of it, which I think is worse because when you don't have the words, you automatically assume the worst, which is what I think has happened here. And Annabeth agrees that Percy should know the truth about his fate. And Percy slowly moves a little bit closer to her before she tells him about the prophecy. And I like the subtle intimacy. You know what I mean? Like, I like that he moved closer to her. Like, he wants her to feel safe and comfortable, and he wants her to feel like she's been listened to and that he's not afraid of anything as long as she's with him, which is lovely. And there's a bit of a clap of thunder in the distance, and I feel like this was, I don't know if this is a real thing, and I don't know if anybody else has talked about this, but I think this was kind of like a warning from Zeus to Annabeth to not tell Percy about this great prophecy. But she does it anyway. She defied the will of the gods there. She knows that she did, but I think she's done the right thing. And Annabeth looks like she looks like she's about to cry, and you can see like the fear cross Percy's face now. Like, he knows she's being serious about this. And Percy asks Annabeth, like, once she tells him the sort of gist of the prophecy, he asks Annabeth if she thinks he would destroy Olympus, but she doesn't say anything. And I think that silence is so powerful. She doubts him, which I don't think she's doing intentionally, but I think it's in the back of her mind now. And because of this, he's starting to doubt himself, and he's so hurt by her lack of belief in him and his goodness. And I think he just feels a little bit betrayed that she doesn't immediately say, no, you're not like that. You know what I mean? And there's a moment of silence between the two of them, and he says to her, you know, like, you're right, like, I wish I didn't know. And my poor baby, like, he doesn't deserve to carry this burden that these gods put on them. And I feel awful when he learnt about this prophecy. But I'm glad Annabeth was the person that told him about it and not anyone else. But yeah, that's how the episode ends. So let's sort of wrap up now with my final thoughts and feelings. So I like that Percabeth sort of kind of made up again, but now Luke has caused this friction between them. It's this big thing from the books where a lot of the problems in Percy and Annabeth's relationship has been caused by Luke, and I'm glad that they've kept that in the show. I feel terrible for Clarisse. I know she's a little bit rough around the edges, but she doesn't deserve to be insulted by her dad publicly like that. And honestly, it just makes me hate him more. Like, the more he opens his mouth, the more I'm like, no, I don't like you. Like I said, I've mentioned this quite a few times, so I'm just going to say this briefly. The whole Princess Andromeda set was incredible. So was the Ironclad, to be quite honest. They're both incredibly colossal, epic sets, and they look like they've both fallen straight out of the books, which is great. Tyson is an incredible character. I'm unbelievably proud of him for saving Percy and Annabeth. He is one of the most lovable characters that's ever been created, and I'm so glad we've got someone like Daniel to play him because he does such a great job. There's lots of Luke and Annabeth tension. Charlie and Leah did so well this episode. Their acting was absolutely on point. And I'm glad that we've gotten the opportunity to see how they're both thinking and feeling because obviously the books are written in Percy's point of view, so we don't really get to explore much of their dynamic. But I'm glad that the show has given us an opportunity to see more of that dynamic. Can we talk about, sorry, this is something I forgot to mention, Luke's wardrobe this season? He has a very different sort of aura this season. Like, he's in his smart villain powerful arc, and you can see that in his clothes. And his entire wardrobe this season is pretty cool, which I like. The speech that Clarisse gave to her crew was so powerful, and I'm glad that she's starting to believe in herself a little bit more, and I really hope she completes this quest to shove it in her dad's face. And finally, I'm glad we got a little bit of the gist of the Great Prophecy. I know that this has scared Percy, but I'm glad that Annabeth has told him the truth and that he knows. And I'm interested to see how that impacts their relationship across the rest of this season. But we'll talk about that more when we get there. So thank you guys so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm sorry it's so long. I am a professional waffler. I do apologize about that. All episodes of my podcast are available to stream on Spotify and on my YouTube channel. Both are at Aamsuntitledpodcast. Podcast. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Threads. Feel free to ask me any questions. My DMs are open and I've got my email as well. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Mwah! Bye!